Ever pondered the importance of impartiality in judicial settings? Why does it matter? Imagine a world where the scales of justice are perfectly balanced. This is the ideal state of coexistence, a harmonious intersection where a judge's personal interests, decision-making, and legal ethics converge without negative influences. In such a world, the judiciary operates with unwavering integrity and impartiality. Personal interests take a back seat, allowing fair and unbiased decision-making to take center stage. Legal ethics, the guiding principles of the judiciary, remain untouched by any potential conflicts of interest. This coexistence is the epitome of judicial integrity, a state we all aspire to see in our courts. But what happens when we achieve equilibrium? This is a state where personal interests are absent, decision-making is unbiased, and strong legal ethics prevail. In this state, the possibility of conflict of interest is effectively nullified. It's like a perfectly tuned orchestra, where each instrument plays its part to create a harmonious melody. The absence of personal interests ensures that the judge's judgments are not influenced by any external factors. Unbiased decision-making reinforces this state, supported by the unyielding backbone of strong ethical practices. However, achieving this equilibrium isn't as simple as flipping a switch. It requires constant vigilance to guard against the encroachment of personal interests and a steadfast commitment to uphold legal ethics at all times. It's a tightrope walk, where one misstep could lead to a fall into the realm of biased decision-making and compromised legal ethics. Remember, the judiciary isn't just about making decisions. It's about making the right decisions, the fair decisions, the just decisions. It's about ensuring that every individual, irrespective of their background, is treated with equal respect and dignity. It's about upholding the principles of justice, truth, and fairness. So why does impartiality matter? Because it's the beacon that guides the judiciary towards the right path. It's the compass that ensures we don't lose our way in the maze of personal interests and legal ethics. Striking a harmonic balance between personal interests and legal ethics is the cornerstone of an effective judiciary. It's a journey, a continuous process of learning, growing, and improving. And it's a journey that we, as a society, must undertake together. Imagine a scenario where personal interests influence a judge's decision-making. Sounds problematic, right? Indeed, it does. This is where the concept of reinforcement comes into play. Reinforcement represents a situation where a judge's personal interests may negatively impact their decisions, potentially undermining the legal integrity we hold so crucial. It's like a domino effect, where one biased decision can knock down the pillars of justice, creating a ripple of consequences that can affect countless lives. Now imagine a different scenario, one where the judge's decisions are not influenced by personal interests. This is where we step into the world of feedback. Feedback, in this context, is not about giving a pat on the back or a critique. It's a system where the absence of bias in decision-making reinforces the lack of personal interests. It's a cycle where each unbiased decision strengthens the resolve to keep personal interests at bay, thereby bolstering ethical practices. You see, reinforcement and feedback are two sides of the same coin. While reinforcement can lead us down a slippery slope of compromised ethics and biased judgments, feedback serves as the antidote, reminding us of the importance of impartiality and the role it plays in maintaining trust in our legal system. It's essential to understand that these are not just theoretical concepts. They play out in real-world scenarios, shaping the outcomes of trials and indeed the course of justice. When reinforcement takes over, we risk losing the very essence of a fair trial. But when feedback mechanisms are in place, they act as a safeguard, ensuring that justice remains blind to personal interests. So, as we delve deeper into understanding the conflict of interest in judicial settings, let's remember the importance of these two concepts. Reinforcement serves as a warning signal, highlighting the dangers of letting personal interests sway legal judgments. On the other hand, feedback stands as a beacon of hope, illuminating the path towards impartiality and ethical decision-making. Feedback mechanisms are crucial to maintaining the integrity of the judiciary. They remind us that in the pursuit of justice, personal interests must always take a back seat to legal ethics and impartiality. What happens when personal interests lead to biased decisions? This question brings us to the heart of a causal scenario, where personal interests may have the power to sway judicial decisions. Let's imagine a judge who owns a significant amount of stock in a corporation that is now standing trial. The judge's financial interests could, consciously or unconsciously, influence his or her ruling, leading to a biased decision that undermines the very essence of legal and ethical principles. This is a clear example of a causal scenario, and it's a situation we must strive to avoid in our quest for a fair and impartial judiciary. Now, what if we flip the script? What if we could take those personal interests out of the equation and focus solely on the facts of the case and the rule of law? This brings us to the concept of reversion. Reversion, in this context, means moving away from personal bias and returning to a state of unbiased decision-making. It's about ensuring that judges make decisions based on the merits of the case, unaffected by any personal interests. The beauty of reversion is that it upholds the integrity of the legal principles that form the bedrock of our judicial system. It ensures that every individual, regardless of their status or wealth, is judged fairly and impartially. It's about creating a judiciary where everyone is equal before the law, and where justice is not only done, but is seen to be done. So, as we navigate the complex world of judicial ethics and conflicts of interest, we must always be mindful of these two scenarios. We must guard against the dangers of the causal scenario, where personal interests can lead to biased decisions. At the same time, we must strive for the ideal of reversion, where unbiased decision-making reigns supreme and legal principles are upheld. In conclusion, the judiciary's strength lies not in the personal interests of its members, but in its ability to revert from bias and uphold legal principles. After all, a judiciary that is free from bias is a judiciary that is truly fair, just, and impartial. The judiciary's strength lies in its ability to revert from bias and uphold legal principles. Ever thought about how past decisions can affect current practices? Let's delve into nonlinear and retrospective scenarios that highlight the importance of learning from past experiences. In nonlinear dynamics, the judge's personal interests can directly impact legal integrity, which in turn influences decision-making. It's like a domino effect, where one piece knocks over the next, leading to a chain reaction. If a judge allows personal interests to interfere, it can have a profound and direct effect on the integrity of the law, which subsequently impacts their decisions. However, life is rarely a straightforward path. More often than not, it's a labyrinth of twists and turns. This is where we introduce the concept of the retrospective scenario. Retrospective analysis is like looking in a rearview mirror. It provides an opportunity to look back and analyze how previous compromises in legal integrity due to personal interests have affected current practices. It's through this lens of hindsight that one can identify patterns, learn from past mistakes, and make necessary adjustments to ensure that the same errors are not repeated in the future. A careful dissection of past decisions can reveal how personal interests may have subtly influenced the outcome. It's like peeling back the layers of an onion, each layer revealing more about the decision-making process. By understanding the past, we can take steps to ensure that personal interests do not compromise legal integrity in the future. It's a continuous learning process, an ongoing journey of self-improvement, where past experiences serve as a guidepost, helping to navigate the path ahead. It's important to remember that a judge's role is to uphold the law with impartiality. Any influence of personal interest can tip the scales of justice, undermining the very foundation of our legal system. So, what do these scenarios teach us? They remind us that the past is not just a ghost that haunts us, but a teacher that instructs us. They teach us that every decision, every action, and every judgment carries weight and has consequences. They impress upon us the importance of maintaining a delicate balance between personal interests and legal ethics. Understanding the past is key to ensuring impartiality in the present. What if personal interests and decision-making processes misalign with legal and ethical standards? This question takes us into the realm of inclusive and exclusive scenarios in the context of conflict of interest in judicial settings. Let's start with the inclusive scenario. Here, personal interests and the decision-making process come together, creating a melting pot of motivations. But what happens when this fusion results in outcomes that veer off the path of legal and ethical standards? It's like a chef adding too much of their favorite spice into a dish, overpowering other flavors and upsetting the balance. Similarly, when a judge's personal interests become too dominant, they risk overpowering the taste of justice, leading to outcomes that don't quite hit the mark of fairness and impartiality. Now let's transition to the exclusive scenario. Imagine a garden where all the weeds have been carefully removed, allowing the healthy plants to grow and thrive. In an exclusive scenario, personal interests and ethical compromises are the weeds that have been diligently removed from the decision-making process. What's left is a garden of unbiased judgments, where decisions are made purely on the basis of the facts and the law, untouched by personal bias or unethical influences. But how do we ensure that the garden remains free of weeds? It comes down to the judiciary's commitment to maintaining a strong ethical framework. This involves a constant process of checking and rechecking, ensuring that personal interests do not creep into decision-making. It's about creating an environment that promotes exclusive decision-making, where personal interests have no room to take root. In conclusion, while the inclusive scenario paints a picture of what could go wrong when personal interests and decision-making intersect, the exclusive scenario shows us the ideal, a decision-making process that aligns perfectly with legal and ethical standards. Remember, the goal is to ensure that personal interests never compromise the fairness and impartiality of the judicial process. Exclusivity in decision-making leads to outcomes that uphold the integrity of the judicial process. This is the essence of maintaining a clean, ethical, and fair judiciary. It's not just about avoiding conflicts of interest, it's about ensuring justice is always served. What happens when personal bias and legal ethics converge in decision-making? Enter the world of conjoined and bottlenecked scenarios, where personal interests and adherence to legal and ethical standards play a pivotal role in shaping the course of justice. In conjoined scenarios, we observe a unique blend of personal bias and legal ethics. Here, the decision-making process is influenced not only by the judge's personal interests, but also by their commitment to uphold legal and ethical standards. This intersection might seem complex, but it's a reality that judges often navigate. It's like a dance, a delicate balancing act between personal leanings and professional duty. However, the dance isn't always graceful. Sometimes the rhythm of personal interests overpowers the beat of legal ethics, leading to decisions that may not align with the principles of justice. On the other hand, we have bottlenecked scenarios. Picture this as a narrow passage that only allows the most ethical and unbiased decisions to pass through. It represents the ideal state where personal bias is absent and strong legal ethics dominate. In this case, the decision-making process is streamlined, focused solely on delivering justice without any personal influences. But why is it called bottlenecked? Well, a bottleneck, in its most literal sense, allows only a limited quantity to pass through at a time, ensuring control over the flow. Similarly, in a bottlenecked scenario, the influence of personal bias is restricted, allowing only the pure essence of legal ethics to guide the decision-making process. Balancing personal interests and legal ethics is no easy task. It's a tightrope walk, where leaning too much on one side can lead to a fall. But it's a walk that every judge must undertake, constantly striving to maintain equilibrium. In conclusion, both conjoined and bottlenecked scenarios underline the importance of balance in the judicial process. They demonstrate the need to control personal bias while upholding legal and ethical standards. Avoiding bottlenecks in decision-making is crucial to maintaining judicial integrity. After all, a justice system thrives on its ability to deliver fair and unbiased judgments, and that can only be achieved when personal bias and legal ethics are held in perfect balance. Can personal interests and professional ethics align with legal standards? This question takes us into our seventh scene, where we explore the contrasting landscapes of harmonic and dissonant scenarios in a judicial setting. Let's delve into harmonic situations first. These are the rare, almost mythical instances where personal interests and professional ethics not only coexist, but align flawlessly with legal standards. It's like finding a unicorn in a bustling city. Unusual, but not impossible. It's when a judge's personal interests inadvertently serve the greater good, reinforcing legal integrity rather than undermining it. For instance, a judge passionate about environmental conservation might be more vigilant in cases involving environmental laws, thereby upholding legal standards with enhanced zeal. However, harmonic scenarios are not the norm. More often, we find ourselves dealing with dissonant scenarios. These are the uncomfortable symphonies where the notes of personal interests and professional ethics clash rather than blend. It's like that grating sound when a piano is out of tune. Everything seems off, and the resulting melody is far from pleasing. In a dissonant scenario, personal interests and ethical lapses interplay, compromising judgments. This could be a judge ruling in favor of a corporation where they hold stocks, or showing leniency towards an offender from their alma mater. These instances tarnish the mirror of justice, casting a shadow over the judiciary's integrity. The challenge, then, lies in navigating these dissonant scenarios, recognizing them for what they are, and working towards creating a more harmonic environment. It's about tuning the piano, so to speak, ensuring that each note, personal interests, professional ethics, and legal standards, plays in harmony rather than discord. But remember, the role of a judge is not to serve their personal interests, but to uphold justice. The judiciary's harmony is not about aligning personal interests with legal standards, but about ensuring that personal interests do not interfere with the pursuit of justice. Harmony in the judiciary is achieved when personal interests and professional ethics align. But more importantly, it's achieved when these elements align not for personal gain, but for the fair and impartial administration of justice. What results from the alignment of personal integrity and professional decisions? Imagine a world of convergent scenarios, where the path of personal integrity and professional decisions intersect, creating a harmonious blend of legal and ethical standards. This is a world where justice isn't just an ideal, but the norm. Here, judges' personal interests align perfectly with their professional obligations, creating an environment that fosters transparency, impartiality, and integrity. In such a convergent scenario, personal bias doesn't dictate decisions, but rather, ethical considerations and legal principles guide the way. The judge's gavel strikes a balance between personal integrity and the law, ensuring justice is served while maintaining the highest professional standards. But what happens when this harmonious convergence begins to diverge? Divergent scenarios paint a different picture. These are instances where personal bias and ethical integrity part ways, leading to potential failures in justice. In these situations, the lines between personal interest and professional duty blur, and the scales of justice may tilt in favor of personal bias. In a divergent scenario, decision-making might be swayed by personal interests, leading to outcomes that don't align with legal ethics and principles. This divergence can compromise the integrity of the judicial process, undermining public trust in the justice system. It's a slippery slope where personal bias can overshadow ethical integrity, and the consequences can be grave, with justice being the ultimate casualty. So what's the takeaway? In the realm of justice, the alignment of personal integrity and professional decisions is paramount. Convergent scenarios represent an ideal, a beacon of hope for a fair and just society. But the reality is, divergent scenarios do occur, and when they do, they can threaten the very foundation of our justice system. It's a delicate balance that requires constant vigilance and commitment to legal ethics and principles. Only then can we hope to steer clear of the pitfalls of divergence and strive towards a more convergent, just world. Divergences in personal bias and ethical integrity can lead to failures in justice. Ever wondered about the complex interactions that influence judicial decisions? Let's delve into combination and division scenarios in the context of judicial decision-making. In combination scenarios, we see multiple factors at play. These are the situations where personal interests, professional ethics, and legal standards intertwine in intricate ways. The interplay of these elements can lead to judicial outcomes that are unpredictable, complex, and sometimes even baffling. Picture a giant tapestry, with each thread representing a different influence. As the threads weave together, they form a complex pattern that can be challenging to decipher. Here, the judge's personal interests may intersect with legal standards, or perhaps their professional ethics might align with the demands of the case at hand. This intricate interplay can produce a wide range of outcomes, from the upholding of justice to potential conflicts of interest. It's a dynamic dance, one that constantly evolves and adapts to the ever-changing circumstances of the legal landscape. On the other hand, division scenarios represent a contrasting situation. Here we see conflicting elements that lead to inconsistent outcomes. Think of it as a tug of war, with each side pulling in different directions. In these scenarios, the personal interests of the judge might clash with professional ethics or legal standards. This discord can create a tension that undermines the legal process, leading to outcomes that may be perceived as unfair or unjust. In division scenarios, the harmonious balance that ideally exists in the judiciary gets disrupted. These disruptions can significantly impact the fairness and integrity of the legal process. It's like trying to complete a puzzle with pieces that don't quite fit together. The end result can be a distorted picture that doesn't accurately represent the principles of justice and impartiality. So, as we can see, the dynamics of combination and division scenarios in judicial decision-making can be quite complex and challenging. Yet, understanding these dynamics is crucial for maintaining the integrity and fairness of our legal system. Division among conflicting elements can undermine the legal process. Can complex interactions between personal interests and legal ethics influence decision-making? This question takes us into the realm of association and disassociation in judicial settings, a fascinating topic that delves into the intricate nuances of decision-making processes. Association is a scenario where decision-making is shaped by the complex interplay between personal interests and adherence to legal ethics. Imagine a situation where a judge's personal interests, say environmental conservation, intersects with a case involving environmental regulations. The judge's decisions could potentially be influenced by their personal beliefs, creating an association scenario. This is a delicate dance, where personal interests and legal ethics intertwine, shaping the outcomes of justice. It's important to note that association does not inherently imply a negative outcome. However, it does underline the need for judges to be vigilant about maintaining objectivity and ensuring their personal interests do not overshadow their commitment to legal ethics. On the flip side, we have disassociation. This is the ideal scenario where the absence of personal bias leads to decisions that uphold legal integrity. In a disassociation scenario, a judge's personal interests are entirely separate from their professional decisions. They remain impartial, making decisions based solely on the law and the facts presented to them without any influence from personal interests. Disassociation is critical in maintaining the credibility of the judicial system. It ensures that each case is evaluated on its own merits, free from any personal bias. It upholds the principle that justice is blind, treating all parties equally, regardless of personal beliefs or interests. In conclusion, association and disassociation scenarios provide valuable insights into the complexities of judicial decision-making. They highlight the need for a delicate balance between personal interests and adherence to legal ethics. Most importantly, they stress the fundamental requirement for disassociation from personal bias in decision-making, because only then can we ensure that the decisions made maintain legal integrity. So, let's always remember, disassociation from personal bias ensures decisions maintain legal integrity. What happens when ethical decision-making is absent? This question brings us to the concepts of integration and disintegration within judicial settings. Integration, in this context, involves a balancing act where decisions are influenced by either personal interests or commitment to legal standards, but not both simultaneously. Imagine a seesaw. On one end is personal interest, on the other, legal ethics. The balance is maintained when one doesn't outweigh the other. This creates an environment where justice can be served without the undue influence of personal bias or an overemphasis on stringent legal standards that could potentially hinder the human element of decision-making. On the other side of the coin, we find disintegration. This scenario could occur when ethical decision-making is absent, influenced by personal interests or lack of commitment to legal standards. It's like a ship without a rudder, set adrift on a turbulent sea, susceptible to the whims of external forces, and without the necessary guidance to navigate through complex legal waters. Here, personal interests or a lack of commitment to legal standards can influence decisions, leading to a potential breakdown in judicial integrity. It's as if the scales of justice have been tipped, creating an imbalance that can have far-reaching consequences. The very fabric of the judicial system starts to fray, trust erodes, and the ideal of justice becomes a mere illusion. It's a stark contrast to the concept of integration, where the balancing act between personal interests and commitment to legal standards ensures that justice is not only served, but seen to be served. This balance is crucial in maintaining the integrity of the judicial system, ensuring that it remains a pillar of society, upholding the principles of fairness, impartiality, and justice for all. In conclusion, it is clear that the absence of ethical decision-making can lead to the disintegration of the judiciary. It's a precarious situation that underlines the importance of maintaining a balance between personal interests and legal ethics, a balance that is vital for the continued integrity of our judicial system. The absence of ethical decision-making can lead to the disintegration of the judiciary.